Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Healing Squad. Give me 1 second and I'm going to get everybody in. Our topic this week is dreams, and we have a special guest joining us. Hello everyone.
Hello. We have a man among us.
Hopefully that doesn't bother you.
Well, I don't know. Are you a bad bitch?
I don't know. I don't know yet. I guess you'll have to tell me at the end.
Okay. All right. It's part of the criteria, you know. It's like the
Oh
t-shirt
no,
bad
yeah.
bitch.
I didn't have to sign anything to get on, so I just
Well, we're gonna have to we have to remedy that. We'll have to have a meeting.
Yeah, we'll let you know. I'm the official bad bitch decidee.
okay.
Yes. The rest of us are just apprentices.
Mm.
I'm just trying to get Anita in, so bear with me for 1 second.
There's Anita. Your eyes are so blue in that shirt, Miss Claire.
Thank you. I actually have this shirt in blue and pink, and I was like, what's more dreamy? And I felt blue.
Ah.
Anita, squad.
Hold on,
Hi,
hold on.
Anita.
Sorry. Hi.
Well, the gang's all here.
Yeah,
We have a boy with us this week, Anita.
I love boys. How you doing, boy?
Pretty good. I kind of consider myself as a man now, but yeah.
No, good.
Ever since I graduated school, I kind of upped my game
You are a
and
man and just hanging out with the women today. I think that's wonderful. It is very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you.
And thank you for being with us on the Healing Squad. We are here to discuss emotional damage, one frustration at a time. And this week's frustration is dreams, and specifically grief dreams. So there was somebody on this Healing Squad show about 2 weeks ago who lost her mother, unfortunately. And we've been messaging back and forth. And she and I started talking about nightmares, and we were just like, oh my god, what do we do about this? And like, and we're just trying to come up with coping mechanisms. And sometimes we feel like, they pop up out of nowhere, and sometimes they're around, death anniversaries or big milestone days. So that's how we decided to make this a topic. And for those of you listening live or watching the replay, feel free to comment with any questions or thoughts on dreams, and let us know if there's any other topics you want us to cover, because this is a community here. And we're here to help each other, and this group has certainly helped me. And that being said, I wanted to give some brief introductions on who all of us are. So here I am, Claire Lucky, more importantly known as Grieving Bitch on Instagram. And I've created this account because I'm angry. And I am angry because in February of 2020, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer, and he ultimately died in June of 2021. And the way I've been coping with a lot of this is making funny little memes and creating jokes about all the trauma I've been through. So I have a lot of street smarts when it comes to caregiving and grief. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to turn it over to some of the other squad members. Marianne, how about you?
Hi, I'm Marianne Matzo. I'm a nurse practitioner, now retired, and I am the host of the podcast Everyone Dies, and that's how I met all the other ladies in this squad. And the joint, I guess, mission for all of us is to help people understand about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. And we do that through our squad every Wednesday night. And we also do it through our podcasts at Everyone Dies. And that's, go check us out, see what you can learn there at www.everyonedies.org. It's EDERY with the number 1, dies.org. So check us out and keep learning.
And I'm Anita Myers. I'm an emotional health and wellness educator, trainer, and coach, and I provide virtual mentorship, workshops, book clubs, one-on-ones, and conversations with lots of people over lots of emotional things so we can get them from wherever they are feeling right now to wherever they really need to be feeling in the future. So you can reach me through my business, interscope365.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and probably some others, but I really don't really invest myself in the other places. I'm a work in progress with that, but that's how you can reach me.
Aren't we all work in progress? Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Marianne. Dr. Josh Black, thank you so much for being here. I'm ready to dive in and hit you with some questions, but I'm also free if you want to introduce yourself for a second.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, of course. Yeah, so I'm Dr. Joshua Black, and my research really specialized in dreams of the deceased that people will have, and also the continuing bonds and the different types that people have. So that was my master's and PhD, and then, yeah, now I'm just raising awareness on the topic, which is lovely that you guys have all, started this account and said, invited me here. So I'm just honored to be here because I know a lot of people have questions, and the hardest thing when you do research is to get the information out after you've done it. So this is just one of those things that's a blessing to my heart that I can be here.
Great.
And then, yeah, I guess I should say too, I also run a podcast too, the Grief Dreams podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grief Dreams podcast. I'm really excited to meet you even more now because of that's your angle of approach. You're looking at dreams from what I heard just now, that you're looking at dreams or maybe nightmares or recurring dreams of people that have passed on, correct?
Yeah, really anything when it comes to a dream after someone has died. And so sometimes it is with the deceased, other times it's not. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But there's also a lot of information on my website at griefdreams.ca. So you can also check that out. There's a lot of stuff on there. But yeah, there's just so much unanswered questions. And I'll try to do my best to answer some of your questions that you have today. But there's still a lot of research that needs to be done because there wasn't really much before I came into the field.
What made you decide to focus your dissertation and your work on grief dreams?
Life is interesting. I wanted to be an elementary school teacher growing up, and that was my plan, or I think it was my dad's plan for me, and I just bought in to make him happy. I think that's how it went. And then what happened in my final year of university, he died, and it was a complete shock to me, and I didn't really know how to process that. And what came out of that was just a bunch of tears. And for me, it was the first time I cried in years. I don't know, maybe probably like 10 years. And I just wanted the tears to stop. I wanted to go back to school, finish up. I wanted to go back to work. And so I tried really hard, and I was successful in stopping the tears. But what was interesting was there's always a side effect to things you do. And so what happened was the color came out of my world. So so on the outside, I looked fine, but on the inside, I would say I was dead inside. The world was like black and gray. I could do everything I did, but there was no life left in me. And that was actually for about 3 months of my life. That was it. And I thought, this is just grief. And I didn't try to help it, didn't try to think anything differently. And then I had this dream of my father that completely changed me. And I wasn't asking for one, it just happened. And so I'll tell you the dream. So I was in my room, and I could see my father at the other end of the room. And he looked happy and healthy, and he looked and there was like this lightness to him, where in waking life, he had a lot of trauma, and he didn't really have the best coping mechanism. He used to use alcohol as a way of, dealing with his emotions. So he's always had this heaviness about him throughout his life. And so when I saw him, he was light. So it was completely different. And I walked up to him and I said, Dad, I'm going to miss you. So acknowledging his death. And I said that I loved him, and we hugged, and I woke up. And when I woke up, the color was back. It was the craziest experience for me, because I remember sitting at the edge of my bed thinking, what was that? And how do I feel so different? And I still don't know to this day why that is, but it completely changed me. And I was able to go back and just sort of live and sort of processing life in a different way. And it wasn't until I started to, try to figure out my career, and I was going to be that elementary school teacher. And then once I got the interview, something didn't feel right. So I declined it, and then I just sort of tried to figure out something else. And I went and volunteered with the bereaved, and that's when this is where the topic really started getting interesting for me, because they had a lot of questions. And I wasn't bringing up my own dream. They were just talking about it. And as a good academic at that time, I was like, I wonder why they're having negative dreams. I wonder how common it is. I wonder what we can do to sort of help them. And when I went to the research, there wasn't anything there for them on the topic when it comes to dreams of the deceased. So I thought, could I do something like this? Could I answer the questions that they had? And so once I gained the courage to actually become a researcher, it wasn't something I wanted to do, and then find supervisors that are willing to actually research a topic that no one's researching, everything just sort of went through there. And I would have stopped at my master's, but the questions were too big, and so I had to do a PhD to answer some of those questions. So that's really how I got into it. And then once I started really researching, and that's when even more questions, and you get the dreams of people, that you start realizing how big a topic this truly is, and how it's a human experience, which at the beginning I didn't really know how common it was, but it's such a human experience that we have when we're grieving, and yet we don't know how to talk about that.
So, I've got 15 things to say, but I'm going to just go to one because I want to be respectful of the time. I want to ask a lot of questions, but I'm just so fascinated over this entire thing. When you lost your father and you went through what you went through, and then you started getting yourself involved in this understanding of what may have taken place, that dream that you had with your father, what is it? And I'm saying it as casually as I can say it, because that's what I think people might be saying. I can sound a little professional, but I'd rather just be like, what the F is it? It's like, what does that mean? What does it mean? What does it mean in terms of the studies and all?
What does it mean? Well, I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't really know. All I know is it changed me, and it changed me like nothing has ever changed me before. And it wasn't something I was expecting. And I hear this a lot. And said, like, there's these very negative dreams, but there's a lot of times there's these very profound, positive, and loving dreams that really change people from the inside. And sometimes it's based on how we interpret the dream, but a lot of times it's the dream itself, I feel, has this sort of healing potential within it. And so when I look back at my dream after doing so much research, there's a couple things I see. And one was he died very suddenly, so I never got a chance to say goodbye. And so for me, that was probably a block within my grieving journey, that I got to say goodbye in that dream. And the other thing was that I got to tell him I loved him. And if I look back at my life, probably the last time I said I loved him was I was like a kid, maybe 5 or 6. He never said to me, never said to him, it was just kind of implied. And so I didn't really know how important that is to tell people that. And so at that moment, I was like, oh, interesting. That was another block that I didn't get to really express myself, I think, as I wanted to. And that gave me that opportunity. The other thing I feel was that there was this loving, peaceful quality within the dream. And this is what's really common in a lot of dreams that really have the positive, comforting, changing experience for people. I think there's something within that really helps us. And a lot of times people say it's a different type of love than they felt before. And probably because I knew he was dead, but I wasn't sad. It was just this almost, it was just a weird, I can't really describe it. I know some people on my podcast try to describe those experiences and they fall short. But the best thing to put it is that love I haven't felt, and a peacefulness I haven't felt before in waking life. And I think there's something about that has a healing potential. What it is that I don't really know, but I know people are having it cross-culturally. And how come we don't have it more often? I don't know, right? So there's a lot of those questions, but I can understand why people believe these dreams may be more than dreams. And you see that across cultures too. But it's a human experience. Atheists and people who are religious are all having very similar dreams in the sense of the loving content, but how they interpret it may be different, and what the deceased maybe says would be a little different. So someone who is spiritual, the deceased may be talking about heaven or something like that. Where someone who is maybe an atheist is not. They're just sharing love in these very beautiful moments. And so for me, look as a researcher looking at that, it's something I wasn't expecting going in. Like, even though I had my own positive dreams, when I actually did research on dreams, what you find is that on average, people have more negative dreams than positive dreams. And the reason for that is a lot of our dreams is based on our waking life. So if we're stressed and sad, we're going to have more negative dreams. If we're happy, we're going to have more positive dreams. And usually before bed and throughout our day, it's a very stressful day. It's very, rare. I think people just have a fully peaceful day and they go to bed, happy.
Yeah,
and so
especially when you're grieving.
Especially when you're grieving. And so what's interesting is then when you look at trauma, you have even more consistently negative dreams. So when people talk about dreams after loss, I would expect, and people probably have, a lot of negative dreams. But what's interesting is when the deceased is in the imagery, they tend to be more positive, like overwhelmingly more positive in nature. And I think there's something unique. So it goes against typical dream research. So there's something different going on when the deceased is present within the imagery.
So, do you notice that is there a difference in the death of the person? Like in your case, your father's death was sudden. You didn't get to say goodbye. Do you notice in your subjects that you're researching that those dreams are more of a result of maybe a traumatic death or a traumatic instance than for people who have been able to say, I love you and goodbye and forgive me and I forgive you, who've been able to kind of close the book?
Yeah, I haven't went too far in depth into some of that, but I understand what you're saying. I did look at, people's grief and their trauma to sort of see, how that relates. And what we found a lot, so negative dreams, they tend to be related to people who are having higher traumatic symptomatology, having issues with guilt or blame are the main things. But at the end of the day, there's still so much research to be done. But someone, let's say that it went through a horrifying and traumatic death, you see some people having very beautiful dreams that are helping them through that, and other people having nightmares of reliving the actual trauma. And so there's still a lot more to know about it, but we do know that people who are suffering more of the traumatic death will probably have more of these negative dreams moving forward. But that's really all we really know. It doesn't mean that the only dreams we'll have, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to change at some point in the future. And so this is sort of the weird world of dreams, is that, for some people, they do really right off the bat get this very positive dream that really helps shift them. And other times they don't. And it's just, what do we do with those experiences? We can't really control the dreams per se, but we can help people understand it to reduce the distress of actually having those dreams, to maybe make use of them when we talk to either a therapist or friends, or just even when we're looking at our own loss in a different way. So rather than being afraid of the dreams, there are things we can actually do to actually work with them.
I know that there are common feelings for the kinds of dreams that we get, that's like anger, guilt, anxiety, sadness in general, and when I hear what you're talking about, I think it's really great that we're having this conversation and just kind of breaking open this topic right now. We're just touching on it. So, I hope anyone that's watching this right now, you may have some questions, go ahead and ask. And even if we don't answer it right now, we'll answer it later. But, I really think about the vivid dreaming. I'm obviously relating it to myself. And then I think about some people that I've spoken with in the work that I do, that there are dreams, and I'm just saying it my way, not like what Google or anything else is saying, right? So there's dreams, and then there's the nightmares, and then there's these vivid dreams that take place, and sometimes the nightmares can be even vivid. I only have associated myself, with anything I've ever had. Of course, I've had nightmares, I've had situations like that, but there was only 2 times where I ever had what I would call vivid dreams. And in my interpretation of these vivid dreams, it was always my mom and my dad, and it was only a short amount of time. I had 3 dreams each, which I can't explain that. I don't know the depth of that. I'll find that out when I meet my maker. But when my mom passed away, now you said something that was important to me, at least, that neither one, my mom or my dad, did I get to say goodbye or have that opportunity. I don't know if it's an opportunity. I think it is an opportunity to actually see them. They were abroad. I was here in Chicago, and the circumstances that they were the kind where I either wasn't allowed to get out there, so I couldn't say goodbye, or I made a decision that, I'm not going to go out there, so I didn't get to say goodbye due to the circumstances. So those dreams that showed up were vivid. And when I say that, it felt like it was real. So, you wake up and, it's like one of those dramatic scenes you see in movies. Like, I know it was real. I was there. It was right there. It's that feeling that is so beautifully traumatic in a way, if that makes any sense. And, I wanted to capture and keep whatever I could keep and write down what was said and what she looked like with my mom and what my dad did the second time around or whatever. What we're doing right now with you is hoping that if people out there are having dreams, negative dreams, nightmares, vivid dreams, that, that they should pay attention to it, I believe, from what you're saying, to pay attention to it and see what it's trying to say. So someone like Claire, she has, if I remember correctly, I hope I'm not misspeaking here and you'll take on from here, but recurring dreams, or maybe they're recurring nightmares, to be able to pay attention to it. That's what you're saying, doctor, to be able to look at it, to write it out, to process through it with someone, right?
Yeah, so a lot of times we don't know anything about dreams. And so we just what we're probably doing is probably hindering us more than helping us. And if we try to find answers to understand it, we may go to a dream dictionary or online, and that's actually not helpful at all for someone. And so it could just, especially if someone's grieving, they're going to have even more frustration. And a lot of times too, in that state of grief, we tend to, make things worse than they really are sometimes with the way we're thinking about things. And so sometimes if we're not even having a dream, we'll think negative things about why that is without actually just saying, oh, maybe there's something up, there's a different reason. So there's a lot of things that can go on as we're grieving, and it's hard to understand because a lot of times it takes time to understand your dreams. And now you're in a moment of deep sorrow with, let's say, negative dreams going on, and the chances of you to understand that dream in that moment would be probably pretty hard. So you're just going off basically basic instincts, usually fear, probably guilt, on try to understand what's going on. And so, but there's other ways to be able to process that. And the first thing is to understand that it is normal to have the experiences. Some people think they say they quote unquote are going crazy, but they're not. They're grieving. This is part of the process. And it's just people don't talk about it within the grieving process. So people think they may be weird or strange, or maybe it's a sign that something is wrong within them. No, you're processing a lot of negative things, and you're trying to figure out a way to live through such a horrible and difficult time. And so as we talk about with dreams, dreams represent our waking life. And so with that, you're going to expect some of these negative dreams, but there are ways that you can work with them, even if you don't understand them. And I guess we can talk about that if you want.
Well, I think what in my experience with my dreams with losing my husband, he was terminally ill for 16 months. So I knew he was going to die. And there were certain things that I did to prepare for that. I mean, as much as you can prepare for something like that, you're never really ready for it. But I absolutely did not expect the type of dreams that I had. And I've always been a vivid, intense dreamer. And my dreams can swing from, I've had incredibly loving, healing dreams with my husband. Like on our wedding anniversary, it was supposed to be our second wedding anniversary. The dream ended with us holding each other in bed, and we were crying and telling each other how much we loved each other. And it was just so moving. And I've had other dreams where I've been really stressed out. And once I woke up, or in the dream, we were making pancakes, which was one of our favorite rituals, and our favorite song was playing. And I've had those really loving experiences. So I kind of had these kind of nice dreams, and then some kind of expected traumatic dreams where I'm trying to get to him and I can't get to him. And that's I think a metaphor for I didn't have the power to save him, unfortunately. Mm. But then the one that scared me the most, which I'm going to share with everyone, and so trigger warning, it's a little difficult, but it was supposed to be his 40th birthday. And that night I had a dream that he committed suicide, and it scared the living shit out of me. And ever since I had that dream, I was like, I did not know how awful my nightmares could be. Like it was just a whole new element of nightmares that I didn't expect. So ever since I had that dream, I was like, what the F is going on here? Like that, like I really have to deal with something. I mean, I have a therapist that I see twice a week. Shout out Lorraine, you're the best, 4 years strong. But like, that's who I talk to about it. And she's like therapizing me and bringing me back to like, well, what happened that day? And like, you know, like she'll do that stuff. But I want to get your reactions to that. And like, I guess it's like how do I deal with like not knowing? How do I cope with it? Like some are good, some are awful.
Yeah.
It's a wild card when I sleep.
Which, you know, it'd be nice if everyone just had these very positive dreams or comforting dreams, but it said it's not the case. And so it's like, how do you work with those that are sort of negative? Because the positive ones is really talking about them and sharing them, and there's something beautiful about that. Not keeping them within, but to be able to talk about it in a safe space. You know, what more can you want than that? And you can learn some more about who the person was and what you're missing and what you got from that. But for the negative dreams, said like it's so distressing, and said the ones you shared are common. I've seen in my own sort of data, and sort of represents sort of the trauma dreams, typical trauma dreams that people would have. And so it's this helplessness aspect of the dream. So for you can't find them or you can't get to them. That's a helplessness sort of aspect of that, and that is a part of what you're working with. Those are the emotions. There's you can't do what you want to do, and you couldn't save him, even though you wanted him to. And the same thing with, you know, him killing himself in your dream. It's a very, like, if you look at that and what that actually represents, once again, there's this powerless feeling to you as the observer. And so by looking at the dream, the best way I always say is to look at the common theme that's going on, because whatever it is, your mind's trying to process that. And so it has weird ways of trying to do that. And so, but if you step away from the imagery a little bit and just look at, you know, what is this event actually trying to say? It was trying to work through the powerlessness. And if you're sort of looking at that day, it was his 40th, and you couldn't celebrate that you wanted to, he's not there. And what's going through you? Probably this real feeling of, you know, hopelessness or powerlessness within you. And just a lot of times just acknowledging that. And that's the best sort of we can do. And that helps reduce the distress of, you know, maybe what was going on with that imagery. And as we work through that, those dreams should reduce as you move forward. But those positive dreams should still continue. And you sort of see that with the data that I sort of have collected so far, that people who do have negative dreams tend to have positive dreams. And so around 40% of people were having negative dreams, their own dreams. And so people who are having negative dreams tend to also have these positive dreams like you, Claire. And so that's a beautiful sign. So a lot of times people have said that even though they're having negative dreams, they don't want to work on anything because they feel that the dreams would stop. And even a negative dream of seeing the person is better than nothing. And so it's just reassuring people that as we work through our grief, it doesn't mean that dreams will stop. And we'll talk about how dreams change over time, but they're actually with us throughout time, which is a beautiful thing as we move forward. So it gives us encouragement to keep processing, because those positive dreams should continue to be there as we sort of move forward. So with you, Claire, what I always like to tell people is, you know, try to understand the dream if you can, and because there's something beautiful about that, and understanding where you are in that day. And then the next part is, what can you do when you wake up after that dream? And so there's different things that research has shown to be very helpful. And a lot of times it's one of the techniques is called dream rescripting. And so what you do is you either change the ending of the dream to something more positive, or you change the flow of the dream. So you can bring a character in, you can change, you know, different things and where you go or what happens in the dream. And then that's the dream you rehearse in your mind throughout the day. And research has shown that nightmares will decrease. Also that the distress will also decrease from that. And so it's really just what it's doing, it's reducing the avoidance. And so you're pushing towards it and you're changing it. And that's the power of being awake, because you can impact that. And what's beautiful is that by doing that, you're actually then impacting what dreams you're going to have later on, and your dreams will then impact you as you move forward. So that's an easy way to be able to do that, and it works with kids and children too. And it's funny because like when I was a kid, I had a lot of nightmares myself of being chased in my house, like by either a burglar or someone was trying to kill me or something like that. And my family was religious, so they were telling me that these dreams were actually from the devil. It didn't really help me because they still occurred. They still occurred. So it didn't really do much for me. Praying didn't really help. And then so what I found myself doing was when I would wake up, I would either if I got caught, I'd be like, oh, what other route could I take so I didn't get caught or to escape or something like that. And that's exactly what you should be doing, right? So then the ending is actually positive. You escaped. And that's dream rescripting. And so that helped me throughout. And then now I realized the dreams I was having was because of the physical environment I was in. As I said, my dad drank, he had a lot of trauma in his own self. So I think it was, looking back, it was probably just preparation for me as if he ever came and, attacked or whatever, that I know where to go. So it's almost like a survival thing that my mind was playing with. And as a kid, I didn't know and understand that, but it was trying to help me be prepared in case something like that did happen, because it was a fear I had that never really got voiced. And so now looking back, I'm like, okay, yeah. So if I could have told myself back then, things probably would have been a lot different in the sense of the dreams I were having and what I could actually talk about with people. So I think dreams can be just another way to approach a topic of grief, to really understand who we are and what we're dealing with.
I just saw that Gina joined. Claire, do you want to see if she wants to come in?
Yeah, Gina, do you want to hop on?
So while we're waiting for Gina to hop on, I'm going to squeeze in a question here as we're talking about these dreams. I told you I got 15 of them, but I'm not going to ask you 15.
All right, 14 left. Let's go.
I'm just going to ponder a profound thought here with you, because I know that this is the stuff that we have. General society, you've got varieties of things, and one of them that you said that your parents may have said is, it's the devil. So when it comes down to, dreams, when I'm thinking about this, one of the theories I always used to think, I kind of use metaphors. It's almost like, your emotions go through like the washer or dryer experience. It's got to go through its cycles as we're sleeping, because there's about 5 cycles that we have. And, it's got to go through the cycle. You stop that cycle in the middle, then you've got a little bit of a problem. It has to go through the whole process. But while we're going through these dreams, one of the things I would think about, because I really like to be very open to all the different things that are out there. There's science conversation, there's neuroscience conversation, there's out there conversations. So, I want to embrace all of that in a way to be able to say, when we look at some of these dreams, is it ourselves? Maybe a little profound, but is it ourselves? Are we helping ourselves? Or could it be the one that we have lost is trying to help us through the conduit of dream? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's a question you get a lot, right? And you don't know, you can't know. It's impossible, because if you, but this is the horror and beauty of life. Sometimes you have to sit in the mystery. Yeah. And so because when you look at one of these, say, really beautiful dreams, it could be the mind organizing that to help you out and reduce, let's say, guilt or frustration. But also, if it was a visitation of a soul, they would also know how to help you and know what to say. So you can't actually determine it. So it's really a personal preference. And I have no problem with whatever people say, but every culture is a little different. Every religion is a little different. And people within religions and cultures have different ways of interpreting dreams. And so there's a lot to say on that. And it's just working. Anytime you talk with someone on the topic, you just have to work with what they believe. And within that belief structure, you can sort of give some guidance. So the negative dreams, some people do take as visitations too. So it's helping people understand the literature to at least give them some guidance in that area. Because like a lot of times they're just given what they know based on other people around them, rather than actually seeing the research. So there are other ways you can do it. But if it's a beautiful dream that someone's having, it's not causing any kind of distress, I think it's great to sort of believe what you believe. But there are really interesting and, a lot of kind of really things that stretch the scientific mind on how some of these dreams are possible. And I'll just give you one, since I know you seem to be very interested in this stuff. So when I was collecting data, when I was collecting the data, there's some people that would share dreams of the deceased, but they, at the time they had the dream, they didn't actually know the person was dead. And so can you even count that in the data if the person's not actually grieving or even know the person's dead? And so what's interesting is I hear this even more and more as I've sort of done talks where someone will have a dream that looks exactly like a dream someone would have after you knew someone was dead, look exactly the same. But at that moment they're having the dream, they never were notified of the death yet. And so they'll wake up and then they're like, so the deceased probably says goodbye, that they love them, you know, the whole scenario. And then they'll call and the person died during the night. And so it's one of those things that when I look at it, there's probably a tie that we have, you know, amongst ourselves, you know, that, you know, love can like bridge a gap in some way. But still, it makes you sit in this mystery that people have been having these types of dreams. And you're like, well, how is that even possible? Because then if they didn't know, they can't be creating it with themselves. So there must have been some kind of inner knowing beyond beyond what, you know, someone would normally think of. So that's why I say, like,
it doesn't happen to 100% of the people. You know, that's the thing that, you know, when you talk about it, it is a mystery. Some people get the dreams. Others who have lost someone would say, I really hope that someone comes into my dream. And then, you know, a month later, they're like, I never got anything. And with those types of equations, it's tricky.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that not everyone will have a dream of the deceased, and that's just the truth. And, you know, one of the questions I looked at is why are some people having more dreams of the deceased than others? Because it is a common concern people have. And so the main reason that it sort of replicated in multiple studies was dream recall. So people who have higher dream recall frequency in general will catch more of these dreams. And so what it's saying to me anyways is that, you know, people are probably dreaming of the deceased more than they're actually remembering it. And so there's different ways you can increase your dream recall if that's something you want. But I always sort of put a caveat in, is you're probably going to remember a lot of negative dreams on top of that if you're right. So it's, you know, like it's just one of those things where you have to work with. Yeah, you have to tweak the frequency. Yeah. And so right? That's right. And so at the end of the day, if you don't have high frequency, it's going to be harder for you to catch one of those dreams. And that's okay. And that's why we say, like, people around you are probably dreaming of them, of the deceased, the person that you're grieving right now, and to ask them about if they've had a dream, because the words that come out of their mouth and some of the moments within those dreams can be utilized for ourselves too. And it's okay. We don't need to be jealous of them. We can actually use it and hold it, because I think dreams are meant not just for the individual, but for the community of grievers.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was just kind of being a creeper and listening. I was in bed, clearly. You're like, do you want to join? I was like, oh, shit.
We should have a rule that all of us should know. And I'm make the statement now. No one in this group that watches it, that doesn't comment, is a creeper. We welcome everyone. I'm really glad you came on here. And I'm sorry, Marianne, out there in the IG universe. She'll come back.
Yes. Well,
so what
I'm
really
interested in this topic, but I have to admit, listening to you, I feel even more kind of like a leper, because, you know, I am one of those people that I've lost a lot of people in my life, a lot of loved ones, and I've always had, with every single person I've lost, even my father, I've lost him traumatically to suicide, but I've had I'm in a better place, whatever that is, dream, the healing, even if it wasn't exactly how I wanted it. I've had the dream where we've got to say goodbye, you know, and I've had that closure. But about a year and a half ago, I lost my mother unexpectedly to a car crash. And I've not had that peaceful goodbye dream. If anything, I've just had terrible, terrible nightmares. And they are horrible, repetitive. They're not the same ones, but it's, you know, I've shared with them, it's like a Russian roulette whenever I go to bed. Like, I dread going to sleep, and I actually used to be quite good at it. It was one of the things I excelled most at, was sleeping. And now I'm just like, I wake up exhausted. I have dark circles under my eyes. You know, it's gotten a little bit better in that, you know, I would track my sleep, and maybe for the first 8 months after it happened, I was getting about 4 hours of sleep just from constantly waking up. You know, I would be screaming, crying. Some of them I would just be yelling for her. Now I still have them. They're not quite as frequent, but they're not any less vivid, any less grotesque or traumatic. And I don't have any really happy dreams. They're not gotten any better. And so, and I don't really know how to reframe these. I heard what you were saying about how to reframe them to where they are more positive, but these are pretty, I just don't know. I wouldn't know how to do that. And so I guess I'm kind of at a loss. I mean, I've tried medication. I don't really feel like that helps too much. I feel like that kind of, like I said, I've gone through a lot of loss before. I feel like, in a way, and this is just my personal belief, that just kind of delays the inevitable. I feel like you have to deal with the trauma and the grief, and you have to go through that. You can't just totally numb out all of those feelings.
Right.
So there has to be kind of like a healthy balance. Yeah,
Right,
there has to be a healthy balance between them. And so I'm just kind of at a loss. I've done meditation, I've done prayer. And so now I've just kind of resigned myself to, I'm just never going to sleep good again. So,
No, that's not what you want to go to. No.
I know.
You gotta have hope. You gotta have hope. There's a way.
I'll have like a week or two where I'm okay, and I seemingly had like a great night, and then I'll go to sleep, and it's just awful. And and I'll wake up, and I can't for the life of me think of anything that triggered it. We had a great day, or I was at work. I mean, nothing. And it's like, for instance, I worked yesterday, nothing happened, and then last night I had a dream, and it doesn't even make sense, where I was in Oklahoma with her. I was in the car with her and, with my family, and we were in the car, and, I was not with her during the wreck, but I went to the site in the car, and we were going through those moments of the wreck over and over and over, almost like on a repeat,
Okay.
and so I could see what would happen to her, things like that. Other times,
Okay, just stop there. I think it's just something to talk about, right? Rather than jumping all around. I think it's just great to like talk about that one dream and understand. And as you said, like, you didn't see any triggers in your life, but just by the dream itself, you're in a car, and I think anytime you're in a car, you're probably having some kind of trigger going on because of the way she died, right? Like, you died, if someone you cared about died in a flight, you probably have anxiety in some form every time you go on a plane. And I think the same thing is probably true with a car accident like that. So that's probably a part of it in some way of, like, it is being triggered underneath, even though you don't fully feel it. But there are ways to actually work through that dream. So you can change what happens, or you can change the ending. So, like, as you're having the flashbacks of what happened, well, then you can stop the flashbacks of what happened, and then either continue driving with your mother, or get out and sort of have a conversation with her and talk about the experience of what she went through. So there's different ways you can process that after the fact of whatever that dream was. And so that's the whole key, is to then make it into a dream that has some kind of, I guess, closure for you, or a happier ending, where you can actually have that conversation. Because in dreams, anything is possible, and you have to remember that. And so it's not like, oh, this happened and ended and it's got to be like that. No, you can completely change it, and you can be creative on how you do it. You can even bring someone else in. If you're spiritual, some people bring in, like God or an angel or something, and be able to talk and be with you as you're talking with the deceased. And so there's different process to be able to do that. And another approach too, which some people have said this actually has helped, is to actually just create a dream you want to have. We always talk about these dreams and a lot of people have these negative dreams, about the ones they don't want to have, or the ones that are causing them a lot of distress. But then when I ask people what dream they want to have, they don't have an answer to that, because all they want to do is not have a dream of the deceased, or not have that type. And so what dream would you want to have if you could? And I think that is a good question for you now, if you want to sort of answer that. So if you could tonight, what dream would you want to have of your mother?
I really just, I just want to know that she's okay, and that wherever she is, that she's, not lonely and not hurting, and that she's okay. That's what I've said, from day one, is that I just need to know that she's okay. And that's, what I worry about is, is she, I just want to know that she's okay.
And that's love coming through. And I think, there's that's why you can use that. Like when I sort of ask that question, you get some new information out and understanding where there is some blocks within one's own grief. And when you look at that, it's like, is there other ways to get that information if you can't get it? So are other people's dreams resourceful for you if they've had a dream where she's okay and she says that they're okay, right? If that's true, then that will help you as you move forward. And other people will talk about, if they're spiritual, other types of continuing bonds that they sort of will either feel them around, stuff like that. And if you haven't had that, it could be also a cause of concern for yourself. In understand that she's okay, right? Yeah.
It is. And I've become like the crazy aunt, crazy mom. I'm pumping all of my nieces and nephews and my sister and my kids. I'm like, have you dreamt about her? What does she look like? Was she okay? I'm like, was it a dream? Or was it just a dream? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, it's just never mind. So it's so frustrating.
Well, you know, when your
like,
situation,
is it her or is it just like
right? Just think about something that I think he said that you have a lot of power to do. You know, when he asked you the question that he did, we've got something that's called imagination, and we do use that imagination for so many different things for us to move forward. You know, how we dream when we were younger. When I say dream, we're talking about daydreaming and just kind of like that. You hear the words of manifesting your future. You know, no disrespect to that, but it's actually very powerful. It's just overused so much now that you might hear it and say, ah, but truthfully, you know, if you want to imagine, how would you like to imagine your mom looking like, being like today? Where is she? What's she doing? And even if you don't know, it is an unknown, but you can use your imagination to go there and imagine what would it be like. Just no different than, you know, when it's our, you know, it's always like the end of the year and we are now looking or forecasting what's going to be like for the next year. We're going to imagine I'm going to be like this. Yeah. You know, I'm going to work out and be like this, and all these things that we do with ourselves. But a lot of us actually go after those goals, go after those dreams. And then they actually come, many of us, it comes to life because we put so much dedication into it. When we have a loss, we feel almost like the loss, there's nothing. So there's no room to create. There's no room to imagine. There's no room to actually forecast what they could be doing and how life could be, depending on you. You know, everyone's made differently, and some people could let it go and move on, or maybe they suppress it. But someone like you, you're actively trying to get past a scene, and that rewriting is a little bit difficult. But I love what he was saying. I was listening to how he was saying it. It's really like, create the ending where, you know, and it's possible she might be in the greatest place. What you saw was an instance in your, you know, when you get there in that moment, and that moment already passed from back, and it's all the way wherever it is. But where is she now, and what is she doing? You know, I'll tell you, I feel for you. We talked before. You know, I imagine my mom is probably having tea with your mom. I imagine, you know, and your husband, Claire, like they're all just partying it up. And
he's putting his bourbon in there. I'll tell you that right now. He's got Weller Antique in there, or Pappy Van Winkle. That's what he's doing. But he's enjoying it. He's enjoying it.
Oh, that's right. They got their own healing squad going on this.
They're having a party and conquering things in their life, and here we are just staying in this rut of what happened back then. We're missing out on where they could be right now. So maybe, you know, there's a lot of processing that you should do and continue to go up that mountain and get to the summit. But I love the tool he has. It's almost like oxygen for you, you know, to be able to get to that ledge on that mountain and just chill for a minute and kind of like imagine you getting to the top of that mountain and with your mom. Imagine as you go through the day that your mom's there. And she's great. You know, can I ask another question? You know how you we talk about dreams and everything. You must have seen studies of when people who have passed come to the dream that they are young, that they look great. I'll say this because both of my parents, you know, I don't even know the age that my parents both passed, to be honest with you. But my mom, it had to have been 60s or 70s, and my dad about 70s or 80s. And my mom showed up like she was like 30 something, looking great. I'm like, her hair is amazing. And she just looks like my mom, and my dad, he looked so young. Like, that's why when I woke up and I saw this, it's like, it grabbed my heart because they were young. And I've heard this in conversations that when people have dreams, what do you think that's about? That, they come back, the idea they come back young as we remember it, or?
Well, it really depends on who's died. And so they come back young, they come healthy, except if they had Alzheimer's, they don't have Alzheimer's anymore. But also that's not true for everyone. And so if a child dies, what's interesting is a child can age as they normally would in waking life. So if they died at age 2, in 2 years, the person's dreaming them as if they were 4. And so, there's different reasons and different things that you sort of see. But I think it's just maybe a vision of, maybe when the person has seen them, that was like the best self of them. And so it's a good view or image of them being healthy and happy, right? Rather than being old and frail or something like that, right? It's an image to sort of, for our hearts to know that they're okay, or that this moment is just a moment of peacefulness, depending on your belief structure. And so I also want to just, go back to the comment. I think there's something, one of the things when we look at these negative dreams that we have, we feel that we're powerless. And so that actually has a huge impact in our grief, because a lot of times our grief feels it's it's more powerful than we are, and so we're walking around hopeless in a lot of ways. But when it comes to these dreams and just doing some of these activities and even creating the dream you want to have, like you can go on the website and actually have a form to actually help you out to actually visualize a little bit better. By doing that, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the control back, and I think that's something that is lacking. And anytime we have nightmares that we sort of say, like, we want to avoid sleeping, we're afraid of it. But what happens if you go towards it? And what's interesting, when you do that, things change. And you sort of even see that with these even types of PTSD type dreams or trauma type dreams, just changing some aspects of it. What they found is that actually helps people actually reduce their trauma symptoms. So just by working on your dreams in such a simple way actually has huge potential. And as you sort of
working on it while you're awake?
Yeah, working on it while you're awake. Yeah. Really, while you're sleeping, you have no control. But
I totally missed that.
The work you do while you're awake.
Is there a worksheet? Did I pick up on a worksheet? Is this something I could project manage?
This is. So there is a worksheet on my website. So if you go to griefdreams.ca, and it'll be a tab for the worksheet. And you can actually just fill it out. And it's one of those things that if you think about that before bed, and you think about that if you have a negative dream, think about that. It's putting power and within back into your life. And when you do that from your dream, it actually helps you put power, I believe, back into other areas of your life, because you're getting the courage now that you have some control. And I think that's the hard part when you are grieving, is to realize there is some control that you can take, especially with the dreams and nightmares. So it's to not give up hope, but to actually reignite it within yourself is a very powerful statement to hold as you sort of move through this next week, and to try that, because at the end of the day, you haven't done it before. So if you haven't done it before, and there's research that supports the idea of doing it, let's try it. And then at the end of the day, feel free to email me and get back to me and see what happens. I would love to hear and love to sort of hear how you're doing and how you're processing those dreams.
I'm definitely going to try that, and I will report back here on the Healing Squad. I'll put a link to that in our notes section of this Instagram Live for anybody else that wants to do it with us. And we are coming to almost the hour, so I wanted to thank you, Dr. Black, so much for spending some time with us. And for those of you who are just tuning in, he's also got a great podcast called Grief Dreams. I think it's on Spotify. I listened to some of it, and perhaps all other areas where you can get podcasts. Is that right?
Yeah. It's everywhere. Yeah, on every platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Gina, Anita. Anything from you guys?
Thank you very much. This was helpful. Thank you for letting me crawl out from under my rock unexpectedly and join.
So sweet.
Always a pleasure to see your face.
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience in the questioning, and your detailed answers and being honest. Some things you don't know, some things you do know. There's still studies out there. So I appreciate your honest answers and, the inspiration that you at least brought for some of the things that we were talking about to help anyone that's going through those they're like crossroads, they're just kind of stuck, that there may be some things that we talked about today or discussed today that gets them to try something out today to just kind of get them to the next level. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. And it's been a great session tonight. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. And please join us where we heal emotional damage, one frustration at a time. Good night, everybody.
All right, bye.